After much anticipation and vacillation about which U.S. Grand Prix I should make my first, I attended the 2024 Miami Grand Prix. Florida in May. Tire warm-up hardly needed. I tossed my sunscreen into my carry-on, booked an Airbnb, and I purchased a 3-day general admission ticket. So why did I choose general admission? Well, I like both my kidneys right where they are for starters, and seats, club boxes, and other fancy places around the track don't come cheap. But maybe more than that, I wanted to learn what I wanted to see and let the weekend unfold. With so much competing information about which turn was best to view from, I thought why not give myself the ability to roam and spectate from wherever I could get a view. I'll just say that being there in person gave me a broader perspective on this. More to come on that later. So without further tire smoke, here are my initial takeaways from my first experience viewing open-wheel motorsports. A Grand Prix race is really just a party that happens to have some racing going on in the background. This event, and I'm sure all Grand Prix races, has the feel of a sporting competition gilded in the gold leaf of an upscale gathering. The drink is flowing, and flowing, and flowing. Gin, vodka, wine, beer, rum. If it's been fermented, there's a heavily branded tent, booth, or cart selling it to a racegoer at around $72 a liquid ounce. So while this event is a competition based on speed and timed laps, it's also a festival of engineering, marketing, and design. The colors, the flavors, the liveries, the music, the team brands, and the companies which by association with F1 want to say something. I don't know if I know a more cohesive intertwining of a sport and the culture and commerce around it. It's really something to see. And speaking of style and the great throngs who attend this event, the Grand Prix is for 3 hierarchies of population. The normies you see, the fancies you see less, and the VIPs that you never see at all. Walking through mile after mile of well-signed walkway are we citizens, the race fans, the partygoers, the interesting and fun-loving people who find a general admission riser on which to crane up on tippy-toe and stretch our necks as we watch a breathtakingly complex piece of machinery howl by at speed. But above us, in the boxes, inside the buildings with the coveted climate-controlled air, and their manicured fingers caressing crystal vessels filled with champagne, are the club dwellers. They watch the race, I guess. I couldn't see what most of them were doing from my peasant viewpoint, but they watch it differently than the rest of us. These are the attendees that don't sweat. They look fantastic. In Chanel or Dior, they peer down past the countless sweat-matted heads of us mere mortals, and they watch a car wind past and they laugh, secure in the knowledge that their hedge fund probably netted them a healthy return since this morning's practice laps. But the fancy people can't hold a candle to the real exclusive attendees. So upper crust that I can't even show you where they dwell. In corporate boxes, in pit lane schmoozing areas, their helicopters and police escorts bring them in over and around the traffic which snarls the rest of us, and a secluded escorted walk later, they're in the hospitality suite with a team principal, all rubbing race suit-covered elbows with Lewis Hamilton or Carlos Sainz. And for us mere mortals, is the event still a blast? Oh, absolutely. From simulators to motorsports-themed art to, did I mention the drinks? 3 days passes by as fast as Max Verstappen on a qualifying run. One of the things that makes this Miami Grand Prix such a standout is the layout of the team hospitality tents inside the Hard Rock Stadium. While I didn't bring a National Geographic-worthy lens so that I could pick out famous faces in the area below, with so much going on in the world of F1, like team engineers and drivers jockeying and playing musical chairs, one can only imagine the kinds of espresso-fueled negotiations happening down there in those tents. So what about racing? Oh, there's plenty of it. This weekend wasn't just the main event F1 race. As of this year, Miami also features a sprint race on Saturday. That means qualifying for sprint and then the sprint itself, like a mini Grand Prix with points awarded for the drivers. Then there's qualifying for the full F1 competition and that race on Sunday. That's a lot of track time, and that's just the F1 cars. This weekend featured the F1 development drivers as well, running races all weekend and showing off their skills on the track. Plus, the Porsche Cup race featuring a gaggle of race-ready Porsche Cup cars. For those lucky enough, or willing to part with the cash, there were hot laps and some fun street cars as well. And in between each and every one of those events are a crew of track stewards cleaning up tire rubber and getting ready for the next event. And after experiencing all that the weekend offers, I had assessed whether the general admission experience would allow me to fully appreciate the main F1 event.
So is a general admission ticket at an F1 race, or specifically here in Miami, worth it? I think so. I intentionally purchased the general admission experience, which allows access to the entire grounds here at the Hard Rock Stadium and several different viewing areas where you can see the track. As my first F1 experience, I didn't want to pick a seat and try to figure out what was the best vantage point to be locked into one viewing point. But after walking around the first day, and you realize that even though there are generous viewing angles all around the track, and there are places where there are stands set up where, sort of on a first-come, first-served basis, those of us that purchase GA tickets can get in and have a pretty good view of the track, you're inevitably going to be in a crowd of folks wanting to do the same thing. And because those are grandstands that are truly standing room only, you're sort of jostling in and holding your camera above folks' heads and staying in the heat for a period of time and enduring the conditions to wait as long as you care to wait to get the best spot possible to see the track. So it often means to get a good seat, or to get a good standing place rather, you're going to wait well in advance of any of the events that are going on here, whether it's the main event, the sprint races, qualifying, and so on. So if you can afford to splurge, having a seat is probably a great way to experience the race if you really want to see a commanding view of the track. After my first day out here, I did decide to go ahead and purchase a seat for today's main event. So in a few hours, I'm looking forward to seeing the Grand Prix from turn 18. And I looked sort of around my views of the track. Helpful to have the context of walking around the facility here and sort of deciding where was the best place in terms of available leftover seats to sort of see the track. And while I think we'd all want to be at the start and finish line and see the start and the end of the race and all the hoopla that goes around that area, I didn't quite want to give up a kidney to buy one of those seats. So I thought turn 18 would be the next best thing. It gives almost a commanding view of the last 3 turns of the track, and I should have the ability to see the cars as they come around, obviously on each lap, but on that last lap sort of see who is inevitably going to turn into that final turn, that series of 3 turns, make it to the finish line first. So looking forward to that later today. I'll be shooting footage of that from my seat. Look forward to bringing that to you in just a few moments for you, and for what for me will be about 3.5 hours from now.
4 p.m. Eastern on race day. After the Red Bull Skydivers and the Mark Anthony National Anthem, it's race time.
That's it. You had started to stand yesterday. You got to stop through.
We definitely had a good defensive car.
Was I glad I'd purchased seats? Frankly, yes. Getting situated as the drivers rolled by on the parade and gave waves to the crowd, I realized I had lucked out by getting a seat in the shade for the majority of the race, and my position at the end of turn 17 meant that I could see the last section of the long straight, and all of turns 17, 18, and 19, as well as the entry into the pits. With the parades and celebrations done, it would take a few minutes for the formation lap to set up the start, and we'd be underway. The race started in what we thought would be predictable form. World champion Max Verstappen looked for the first half that he'd run away with the race like he'd done with the sprint the day before. But he'd been unhappy with grip all weekend, and things were about to change. A safety car entry into the track around midway through the race resulted in a recompressing of the field, and then Lando Norris of McLaren got the benefit of that safety car, which effectively put him in first, and the entire field behind him had to play catch-up. The commentators at the race, as well as the crowd, began to realize we might be witnessing a first. 20 laps later, it was assured. A lightning-quick Norris was on the verge of his first Formula One win, and the crowd was feeling it.
And that really, if he can manage to do that for another couple of laps, he could really get a lead here.
there it was, Lando Norris with his first F1 victory, and for me, confirmation that attending an F1 race is all that it's cracked up to be. With the race over and the roar of the engines faded, I'm left with questions about which driver I root for and why do I like F1? And I think I like it because it's hard. If you think about the level of skill and commitment that it takes for a team and a driver to consistently win in this sport, it borders on superhuman. And for that reason, the drivers that I gravitate toward are those that are looking for personal improvement race after race, that are committed to being their best, that have sort of a no-nonsense focus on being the best race driver and the best winner they can be. And for that reason, I'm a Verstappen fan. I've followed him as he has grown in his capability in F1 racing. As I get to know the sport more, it's fascinating and inspiring to watch such a talented athlete. But there's another driver that's moving to a new team next year that shares some of the same sort of leadership characteristics on and off the track. And as I peruse the merchandise tents that are scattered around the track, I had to buy some additional merch to support that other driver as he makes his move to his new team next year. My first experience at a Formula One race did not disappoint, and it's one that for any race fan that I highly recommend. I'm looking forward to the rest of the 2024 season, and of course 2025 as it comes up quickly. Thanks for watching.